This time, Déjà Vu Paranormal travels to Spring City, Pennsylvania to investigate the infamous Pennhurst Asylum, where they find out the inspiration for Season 4 of Stranger Things. Shortly after arriving, the team gets a tour from Autumn, a board member of the Pennhurst Memorial and Preservation Alliance, who has been archiving the history of Pennhurst. She gives us insight into the horrors that happened here, as well as what was intended for the institution. Pennhurst Asylum was originally called the Eastern State Institution for the Feeble-Minded and Epileptic, and became overcrowded within the first 4 years of being open. 8 years after opening, they segregated the men and women. Even though there were adult patients, all patients were referred to as children. It opened in 1908 and closed in 1987 after 79 years of controversy. In 1968, a 5-part exposé by reporter Bill Baldini was televised, showing the world what was happening in the purposely secluded institution. Clips from this exposé are included in this episode, some of which may be disturbing. In Season 4 of Stranger Things, a large plot point involves Pennhurst Asylum. Use the timestamp in the description to skip spoilers. In an attempt to understand the attacks by Vecna, Nancy and Robin go to Pennhurst to talk to Victor Creel, a patient that had been accused of brutally murdering his family and gouging his own eyes in an attempt to kill himself. He claimed it was the work of a demon, so he was sent to the asylum instead of prison. The similarities between Victor Creel's experience and what Vecna was doing made them believe that Victor was telling the truth. Similarities don't stop there. They continue into real life. Employees at Pennhurst believe they know the inspiration behind Victor's harrowing experiences. Richard Griest, a former nurse aide that worked at Pennhurst in 1978, went home to his family one night and went into a psychotic rage. He stabbed his wife to death with a screwdriver, killed and mutilated their unborn son, attacked his grandmother, and stabbed his daughter in the eye. On August 2nd, 2022, Richard Griest was released from Norristown State Hospital, where he's been for more than 4 decades. He will never spend time in prison by reason of insanity, just like Victor Creel. To learn more about Pennhurst's history, see more historic photos, as well as help preserve Pennhurst, go to preservepennhurst.org. This is episode 1 of a 2-part series. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss part 2.
We are absolutely rural Pennsylvania, middle of nowhere, and that, again, purposeful, because the idea was not necessarily to create a constructive environment to assimilate these people back into society as they would like to say it is. And honestly, we did start to do that in the 70s, right at the end there. We finally started to do things right. But prior to that point, this was very much so a place oriented towards the isolation, sterilization, and a hopeful elimination of these individuals. It was, we're going to keep them here until they die off.
But I have a funny story. There were actually 2 guys who escaped. Not fully, but they escaped. They actually went down this hill right here. They built a raft, literally built a little boat, rowed it all the way down to Reading, got off said raft, and then they got jobs at a maintenance shop. They were homeless for a little bit, just vibing, and then they got an apartment because they earned enough money to buy an apartment, got an apartment for themselves, and then somebody called and was like, hey, there's these 2, they were autistic. They were like, they're these clearly feeble-minded people over here in this environment. And so they called Pennhurst and they're like, you missing anybody? And they were. And so they sent them out, they got them, they brought them back, and they died here.
That's terrible.
They literally proved that they could assimilate. They literally were like, what else do you want from me? I proved I can do it on my own.
Wow.
And they still brought him back, which is always why I kind of beg was this really the plan? Was that really what we wanted, you know?
I think Pennhurst is in the condition it's in because nobody cares. The general community either doesn't know or doesn't want to know. This horrible, horrible condition at Pennhurst must not be permitted to exist. It is, without a doubt, one of the worst residential facilities in the country. It received a very low rating from the American Association for Mental Deficiency. There is no reason in this day and age, with federal funds available, for such a place to exist.
In fact, there is a letter from Hitler to a board of trustees of an institution in the state saying, good job, congrats on what you guys are doing. And so if Hitler's telling you you're doing a good job, bad job.
The death discussion is always kind of a difficult one, at least for me as like a historian, knowing the site so well, because unfortunately, and even consulting the best, like the professional people, our actual leading experts on Pennhurst history, we don't really know how many people died here, which sucks. I can tell you a minimum, I can tell you like an estimate. Jim Connery, who I always say is the leading expert on Pennhurst history, because he was actually the statistician that followed about 1,000 residents out of here and was able to statistically prove that living in group homes and CLAs and like living with family is way better than this, which had never been done before and is so, so important. He says that of the 10,500 people that filed through here throughout the time we were operating, about half died. So he says about half. I can verify that we have at least 2,800 deaths here. At least. And that only covers about 50 years of our history, missing several huge pandemics. So yeah, we do have a cemetery. It has about 40 graves. In fact, actually, they didn't name them. They gave them numbers. Thankfully, they went through like National Parks Service and the PMPA, and like people who care like found their death certificates, gave them headstones. So now there's headstones and stuff in the cemetery. This is our house.
Like families, I guess, complain like if like someone young passed away, they're like, "What happened to my kid?"
Yeah.
Versus like coming and being crazy, but like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen multiple reports of people that are pissed as hell about it. And ultimately, it's actually what closed us. This was our hospital building. This is one part of it, though. This is actually quite a small segment of it. This building is absolutely massive. But this building was really important in terms of like why the abuse and neglect sustained by Pennhurst residents was able to continue for so long, being like over 70 years of reported abuse and neglect. Like we had reports in 1912. That's 4 years after opening that we knew things were wrong, and yet we didn't close till 87. So that's a long gap of like, hey, we knew what was happening, but why wasn't there anything done? And it was this building that did it. Because nowadays, when we have kind of institutional living like nursing homes, there are several third parties that are involved in fixing that problem, if there is one. I used to work in EMS, and so we get called to nursing homes quite frequently, and it's always kind of disheartening because sometimes they'll have obvious signs of abuse and neglect, like bed sores and sepsis and injuries that don't make sense, cigarette burns one time, you know? And so obviously, we took them to the hospital, we filed a report, the social worker got involved, the hospital filed a report, everybody's going in, social worker goes to the place, make sure everything's good, and that is the cycle that we follow today. But when patients at Pennhurst would end up with sepsis or bed sores or cigarette burns or obvious signs of abuse and neglect, they'd be brought to the hospital, and they'd see a doctor with a vested interest in keeping them here, and then they'd be sent back. There was no third party involved at the Pennhurst Hospital, and so obviously we can't trust people to just, hey, yeah, I'm going to rat out my fellow doctor for being a shitty guy. And we also have to keep in mind that very early on in the 20th century, when this place is opened, they literally refer to the individuals living here as hopeless, as criminal, as almost human. Our belief was that they weren't human, and so they justified their horrific abuse and neglect put onto these people by the idea that they were able to dissociate. No, actually, I do smell that. Like, I just got hit with it.
It's like a flowery smell.
I wonder what that is. There's like a whiff, like right where you guys are standing.
It was like both of us were like.
No, I did smell it.
I'm wearing a little bit.
It's not me.
Not you. No. It smelled like you know, like
it's like
80s
fresh
perfume.
Flowers, yeah,
powdery
fresh flowers.
flowery.
Mm-hmm. horrific use of physical restraint and the idea that there was no other option in controlling them. And then once we got medication, once we got psychotropic medication specifically, that was something we abused quite a lot. Almost every resident here was on some sort of psychotropic medication, such as Thorazine. Thorazine was the common one and also one of the most deadly. There's another one actually, lived in this ward right here, who was killed by an overdose of Thorazine. And then his mother came in, obviously frantic, like, holy shit, you just killed my son. And they put her on Thorazine and knocked her out. And like, I'm not kidding, like, it was absolutely insane. That was just what they were doing at the time, because they're like, the doctor's report, he sounds like such a douchebag, because he's like, you know, she was being crazy. I'm like, of course she was, you just killed her son. Right, exactly. I'll be honest, I spend so much time here, it doesn't feel like I come into contact with anything necessarily evil. But usually we're talking to residents, you know, those are really the people who lived, you know, suffered, died here. And they're always really chill. Like, there's a guy in the infirmary, he's like a medium told me that he was like 9 years old, he has Down syndrome, and his thing is like fist bump. He'll fist bump you. We were doing the Estes method up there, and he's like, fist bump? And I'm like, hey, fist bump, bro. And he goes, thank you. And I was like, oh, this is so cute.
The team heads to the infirmary that was just opened this season and is set to be demolished. It's the furthest building on the campus, and we had to be driven there.
So what we're looking at right here is basically a big U. So we have two wards. We're standing in the middle right here. There's one down that way, one down that way. They're both identical in structure. That was the boys, that was the girls. I'm gonna take you guys down the girls' side. And this was later on, as you can see from the big old windows, this is actually meant to be a tuberculosis ward, although we finished it in 1952, and so we were kind of late to the party because TV was over in like 55. And so we never really got to use it for its purpose. And so it became kind of like a living ward or overflow for the hospital. Yeah, cubicles wouldn't have been here. It would have just been this open to those windows there. I've seen as little as 4 beds in this space and as many as 10. Wow. So just in this space, wow. Yeah. But I always like to stop at this bathroom behind me because this one actually made me cry. I'm going to be real personal story. Made me sad. It was actually like a Wednesday, and it was prior to us opening up this space, prior to us even having the inkling of opening up this space. I thought it was going to be demoed. And so I was coming in here doing the artifact retrieval, doing the 360 photos and everything like that. And it was a Wednesday morning. And I remember because I got my kid on the bus, and my kid has this horrific maladaptive behavior, that's what they call it, where on her 40-minute bus ride, literally like this 40-pound little string bean little kid, she gets up and she sits next to another kid. She just likes to sit next to somebody to talk to them because she gets lonely. Mm-hmm. That is her horrific maladaptive behavior. Right. And to combat this, they decided that she needed to be strapped into an 8-point restraint. It was a vest that we put her into, and then something that clipped literally into the bus. And I'm struggling with it, trying to put her into this stupid bus seat that morning. And I'm like, I couldn't get it out of my head as I'm strapping her in, and she's like flinging around. Like, she's gonna die if this bus is on fire. Like, they're not gonna be able to get her out. And so, thank God, I taught her how to get out of it, don't worry, like immediately. I didn't even need to teach her, she's so smart. But I came in here that Wednesday, my poor boyfriend's down the hall, he's in the last room down there, and I'm like crying, crouched over in here. Because last time this space was used, it was 1987, and there's seatbelts on the toilet. There were seatbelts on all of the toilets. And no dividers, no privacy, but restraints. And I know that there were people left entirely too long, like 18 hours too long. On the toilet? Yeah. To the point where we get infections and bugs, and like I have records of this. Like I can verify it. And it just bugged me because it was like, damn, this is 1987 and it is still happening now. Yeah. I always tell my tours, I'm like, I know y'all aren't legislators unless you are, and then go change stuff. Yeah. But like the thing is, like there's so many things that disabled folks suffer with nowadays. The idea like you can legally be denied an organ transplant. I know a girl with Down syndrome who was just denied a kidney because they didn't think she deserved it. You can be legally paid sub-minimum wage. My friend's dad, who has cerebral palsy, and he retired and then was forced back into the workforce because he couldn't survive off his retirement money, and he worked for 30 cents an hour until the day he died. Oh my goodness. Yep, in a sheltered workshop is what they call them. There's things with like marriage supports getting ripped away and healthcare and all that jazz. It sucks. They have a hard life, but I'm gonna be real. The thing I am worried about most with my kids is not the whole organ transplant thing. Hopefully I won't ever run into that problem, but more so because I am so afraid they're gonna be bullied. And it's already happened, and it will continue to happen, and I'm aware of that. But it doesn't make it any easier, and so I'm always like, man, understand that every behavior has an explanation behind it. Like, we don't just do things for willy-nilly. It's because we feel things. It's because we do things a certain way.
My son has Asperger's.
Yeah. Did you know, actually, that the term Asperger's is from Nazi Germany?
So we don't use that. Yeah, so we were discussing actually in the car about how it's like,
it's like phasing out.
They don't
I don't know if it's
like on the spectrum instead of.
Yeah, I think that's what they're leaning towards. But it always was just like an appalling story, because I use the term Asperger's just like because people with Asperger's are like, yeah, I have Asperger's, like that's just how they are. Yeah.
We were like, okay.
Right, yeah. Yeah. Right, exactly. I think I always just like, I'm not sure if it's necessarily an offensive thing, but like the origin of it is like, oh my God, like yikes.
I think as long as you acknowledge that the origin
is gross, It's actually, it's named after a German eugenicist who actually, the term Asperger's was the cutoff point, where if you were Asperger's or above, you had to live. And Asperger's and below Asperger's, you died. You were slaughtered. In fact, actually, the first people killed in the Holocaust were over 200,000 disabled people before anybody else. And we don't talk about it, so. All right, let's go.
Here we are talking about it and putting it on YouTube.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hell yeah.
That's what we're here for. That's the truth. We repeat it if we do.
Joe, how long have you been in Pennhurst? Do you know how long you've been here, Joe? That you remember?
I was 19 when I first came back.
How old are you now, Joe?
20.
You want to go home?
Yeah, I like to.
Who's going to take you home?
Nobody.
Why, Joe?
They don't want me to.
We were very self-sufficient in the idea that like we had our own farm, we had 2 power plants at one point, now we have 1, but we had a pharmacy, a library, a radio station, all our dorms, all our stuff.
It's like a little city.
It is, yeah. In fact, our postcards say Pennhurst, PA. Is what they say. Like we were our own little town. And then Rockwell was right here, and that was our school building. They taught the same exact curriculum as public school, just here. So again, why are they separate then? You know?
You're proving that.
Exactly, exactly. And thankfully, like the ADA and like all of our educational kind of people point this out, and that's actually a large reason. In fact, actually, institutions are most of the reason.
No special education teachers.
No, yeah, none of them had training in special education. Yeah. Well, be fair though, because it wasn't a thing yet. Like there wasn't any, in fact, ABA didn't exist, speech therapy didn't exist. Like for a large part of our history, up until like the last like 20 years or so, we finally start seeing a re-uppance in those things. But yeah, we didn't have any of that. It just didn't exist. In fact, Pennhurst was realistically probably the best option if you were one of those families that was going to lock up your disabled person in the attic, you know?
Could you tell us a little about the problems you have faced purchasing necessities since Pennhurst has been on its most recent austerity program? Could you tell us a little about the situation with the braziers?
Well, there was an order for braziers. It was canceled. We were given the opportunity to justify the requisitions.
How did you try to justify it?
On braziers. Well, on that one, I just wrote self-evident.
What happened then?
It came back with a large group of requisitions for more justification.
More justification. Did you justify it further?
I had one of our doctors write a justification.
Did you finally get them?
No.
Yeah, this is our middle point. So if you guys ever get lost in here, you'll want to come to this stairwell and then yell. This building is so large that if you scream at one end and I'm at the front door, I can't hear you. But if you're here, I can hear you. So if you ever get lost, we're here. This is Candyland. So back in our heyday, this is actually one of the very few spaces in which we got to play. This is usually a pretty happy space. I know that's occasionally the thing that's over there comes over here and is not so happy, but usually they're chilling. I'll point out actually something on this painting which is quite interesting is I always see it called like the picture of 4 kids, but there's a 5th. And she's got blonde hair, the blue eye, and funny enough, she's in a wheelchair. She's the only one that's like disabled, and she's kind of forgotten. Yeah, so we started as a kids institution. Actually, we started as a male-only children's institution, and we served 6 to 16. That was our core age range, and then those kids grow up. And then so most of the people that lived here like their whole lives, and so they grew up in this space. Yeah, you can't exactly tell them to like GTFO once they're 18. So yeah, they stayed, and we had clients as old. I think the oldest client I've seen is 87, and as young as 3 months.
The only thing would be like if you specifically have had any...
Oh, hell yeah, I'll tell you a story. No, actually, so my favorite story that I've ever had happened actually was on the 3rd floor of Mayflower. This was like, oh my God, it's been like 2 years now, which is terrible. I've had so many experiences, like they happen so consistently, but this one always like seared itself into my memory because up to this point, I'm not gonna lie, I was a skeptic. Like was straight up like ghosts don't exist, like this is silly, I don't get it, whatever. And so I was actually up there with this little tiny Georgian lady. She was like this tall, she was the cutest little thing, but she was on her own doing a road trip, like visiting all these haunted locations. So she came for a private history tour, and it was actually like right around this time. It was like dusk time, it was during the summer. And so we finished our history tour and we still had a bit of time, and she was like, so can we go ghost hunting? I was like, hell yeah, we'll go ghost hunting. And like, so easiest spot to go, and usually pretty the most consistent one is 3rd floor Mayflower, because they always get like the knocks and the footsteps. Like you don't have to do much for them. If you just sit and are quiet, like they'll come out and they'll forget you're there and they'll start moving around. So easy peasy. And we were getting all that stuff like up on the 3rd floor, just chilling, getting the knocks, getting the footsteps, and it was kind of normal. And so I was like, it's good time to go. She's like, so if you want us to leave, can you make a noise for us? Trying to get him to knock so we could go. And immediately I hear this man, like right here, like I felt his breath across my neck. He goes, like sighing in exasperation at me. And I just remember the feeling my body felt, it sunk. I was like, oh, what just happened? And I'm like, okay, because she's looking at me, I'm looking at her like, because she heard it, I heard it, I'm like, uh-oh. So we're like, okay, we're leaving. And so we leave very quickly. And I'll be honest, I didn't look back, but we kept hearing like thuds, like it sounded like doors were closing behind us. Like it was loud, like things were crashing. Yeah, like it was scary. And so we're rushing down, and I get all the way out to my car, because we used to park out where you guys park. And I try to start my car, and my car wouldn't start. And I was like, no! So it was scary. Yeah, it was the beginnings of a horror movie. Right, exactly. I had to have my dad pick me up, but it was fine. But yeah, that was the one that like really got me like, oh crap, they're here. Like I've been in buildings alone during the daytime where I hear literal screams upstairs, and I'm just like, hope that's not trespassers. Like, just if it's not people. Yeah, because like I have to go clear the building and nothing's there. So it's a lot of really intense stuff for sure.
The team grabs their equipment and heads to the Devon building.
The fuck? That was you. That was not me this time.
Yeah.
And we're on both the same channel, so if that was a trucker, mine would be going off.
You're right. All right, can everyone face me?
Yep. Hello? Are you talking to me through the walkie? Can you say your name?
Can you hold up the walkie? Where is it?
Hello?
What is that?
The fuck?
What was that?
There's nothing in these buildings that would make that noise.
What was that?
Everybody heard that.
Yeah, that was like an old radio.
Yeah.
That sounded like an old
None of
radio.
my equipment
Yeah,
is on besides the camera I'm holding. And that was way out over there. hear it?
Did you just hear people talking?
I just heard people talking. I heard a scream. I heard the music again. It's this way. Should we follow it?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that plane is coming.
It's coming from there. What is that? A music box?
That's the tunnels.
What the fuck?
Why is it red?
Wait, you want me to jump over and see?
Over here.
Same way I got
Nate,
up,
go that way.
got down.
There's stairs down there.
Oh god.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Hello?
It sounds like creepy music you play at a Halloween
Oh, it
night.
is. Hello?
But that was not playing when we walked by it.
It wasn't. And there was no red light.
Hello? Put your walkie in there.
Hello?
Talk through that
Oh, there's something playing something down in there.
Yeah.
There's like a really, I can't see it on the camera here, but there is like a really bright like spotlight.
Weren't we down there already?
No.
No?
Go to the tunnels, back tunnels, because the
Nate.
tunnels go in that way.
I would ask Autumn.
Ask
Can you ask on their walkie?
that walkie-talkie.
Hey, Autumn?
Oh, wait, are we on the same channel as her?
This one should be.
Because this just went off again.
This one should be connected. Do you guys have any like creepy music or noise playing down in the tunnels with a red light?
Like Rockwell tunnel?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
I'm down with all the dirt piles by the Devon building, and down in the tunnels I see a bright like spotlight on the floor with a red light, and there's a lot of like creepy like Halloween music or noises going on down there.
Hold on, I'll try to figure out how to pull that.
But how'd it turn on?
It turned on. Tell her that it turned on while we were walking by.
Is it on a timer?
Yeah, because it just turned on its own, I think, because it wasn't on when we walked by.
Right, that's not confused. Hold up, we'll be over.
Yeah.
And then, like, we were over there, my walkie started going off, then all of a sudden we heard this loud music.
And the red
we're like,
light
what the
turned
hell?
on.
See? My walkie's still doing it. And then,
Like, I swear to God, I stopped in there earlier and made sure that it was off.
yeah,
And we knew it was off.
and my walkie started going off, and then all of a sudden we started hearing music. We're like, where is that coming from?
And then the red light turned on because we didn't see it when we were over there, remember?
Yeah. Was the red light always on? Now yours is
mine's going off.
All right.
weird. What the hell?
This one's going off, and that one should be too.
So weird.
It's so weird. It's just like turn on down. And it's like 11, so it wouldn't even be on like a 10 or anything.
Yeah,
Now hers is going on.
yeah. So that walkie's going off on its own.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's no way you could have fucking rigged that
Yeah.
and turned it on as we walked by, you know?
Is it off now?
Is it? Like,
Oh,
we
okay.
didn't hear it when we walked by, and then all of a sudden we heard this.
I was afraid that it was.
That would have been me.
Oh.
I was
Jesus.
What in the
Yeah, but it's
screen?
switching. It's playing with both walkies.
Yeah,
It's
it keeps
back
going
and
mine,
forth.
and then his. We walked back.
Was that you, Nathan?
No. Is it still on?
Oh, I hit this. Sorry.
Okay, no, it's off.
Okay, then you saw that was taped though. Like
Yeah.
That light was not on.
But you don't have a timer?
No. And I mean, like, I was thinking maybe it's a timer for camp
This
out,
is still going on.
but it started at 7. So, like, there's no reason it would start at
It would have been on at 7. Yeah.
Weird.
We gotta go down to the tunnels. It literally just caught us to the tunnels, I think.
Because we were debating Devon or tunnels.
That's a
Yeah,
sign.
so while we
on everything, they were like, come down here.
I honestly don't know how that happened. Like honestly, because I checked earlier when I went
So
to
you
go
went in the
unlock
tunnel and
it
it was
to make
off.
sure that
So
the
you
tunnel
confirmed it was
noise is off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
And
went
there's-
down because I was like, oh my god, like of course they're gonna leave it on. I'll have to figure it out before they get here. Like they'll just do
Right.
it. It was off. So I was like, okay, it's fine.
Okay.
And there's no way for you to have triggered that. Yeah, I mean,
I had to go there.
There and do it. And she was
yeah.
So everything happened all at once.
That's
so we're going to the tunnel.
All right.
That's your
That's why I was like,
your
"Look."
side.
That's why I was like, walkie them and figure this out.
Yeah, well, I was just like, I hope nobody's messing with our lights. Like,
Right.
but like literally,
But we would have seen somebody here.
yeah, and security's literally in the bay. Like they're kind of uptight, you know, like not doing anything.
Yeah. Well,
Go to the tunnels.
either that or it was trying to get us away from Devon.
I know.
Listen, I'm down for either. I'm not one to directly disobey.
Make like a big machinery noise. It was
I
coming
mean,
from right here.
There's this soundtrack down there that's kind of like hollow, bellowy kind of.
yeah, that's
like the
what
stuff
was
you were
on.
hearing. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that
what we
was
had
on.
down there for camp out and like the lights and everything. But I don't know why they just came on now. Like we would have heard them on the tour too. Like,
That's why we were confused, and that the red light was off until we got next to it.
I don't know. I honestly, I don't have an explanation.
All right, how do we? She knows. Okay.
Okay, it's a straight shot. Don't worry about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to go home.
We're a long way from home.
Kinda?
Big steel door.
Oh gosh.
Scary down there.
Why would you say that?
Sorry. I'm amping up the energy.
And my heart is dropping.
Again. I don't know.
I'm gonna run.
And the walkie stopped.
What?
Still going on.
That's right when I said it.
Next time on Déjà Vu Paranormal.
Have fun.
You too at the back. Did you just fucking hear that?